Hello everybody. Today they're celebrating in the States Martin Luther King Day, and I was thinking about how he would be reacting to current affairs there, and I'm sure he'd be absolutely thrilled that Georgia now has a black senator, but absolutely dismayed at the contrast between the police presence at the Black Lives Matter protests and at the demonstration by Trump supporters. I was looking again at some of his sermons to see what motivated him, what lay behind his very brave and effective civil actions. And there's one which he calls the transformed non-conformist. And he talks about the way in which we are all too easily caught up in the world's values, in the way in which it is assumed everybody will behave. We just go along with that. But we ought, instead of conforming to that, to be non-conformists. We ought to be living by the standards of Jesus, which are often quite contrary to the world's standards. And if we're going to do that effectively, we've got to be transformed. We've got to let God take our lives and recreate us so that we are able to live according to those new values and not the world's ones. Transformed non-conformists. But of course, if we're going to do that, really do it, and I'm going to work out today some ways in which perhaps I need to change my life to be more non-conformist. If we're going to do that, we are going to encounter opposition. And just as I was thinking about this, take 5, I heard on the radio an interview with Catherine Switzer, who in a very different walk of life made her own protest. She was a runner back in the 60s, when for women to be runners was, not to say unusual, even frowned upon. And she talked about how as a young teenager she was told that if she went running she would grow hairs, she would lose, her uterus would drop off, she'd become like a man with thick legs. It was horrible actually, and I've put a link to the interview so that you can hear in her own words how it felt. But she persevered and eventually entered the 1967 Boston Marathon by just putting her initial in the entry form and not indicating that she was a woman. And after running not very far, she was attacked by the sponsors of the marathon, physically attacked, although she did determinedly finish the race, saying, if I don't finish this, people will feel I'm letting the whole female gender down. She had to put up with enormous opposition because she was doing something that was non-conformist, but she persevered. And I think today, if we're going to do our part in being transformed non-conformists, to changing the world as Martin Luther King did, and indeed as Catherine Switzer did in the world of athletics, we need to expect opposition and to be brave enough to confront it, and above all to keep going. And so that's going to be my goal for today, to recognise that it might not always be popular, but it is always right to conform to Christ's values and not the world.